Good afternoon. So today we are exploring relationships, responsibilities, and regulation, trauma invested practices for fostering resilient learners. This book is based on the findings of Kristen Souers and Pete Hall, and it focuses on how we can move beyond being trauma aware to being truly trauma invested in our classrooms. When I was looking through the books to pick from, I saw this and felt that it really could help me in the classrooms that I teach in. So I am a health teacher in the middle school and also a PE teacher in the middle school. And I was really intrigued to see are some things that I could learn to bring into our building, and also maybe something that I could teach in my health class. So we are going to dive into why trauma invested teaching matters. Why is this focus so critical? Statistics show that many of our students have experienced or are currently experiencing trauma. Trauma isn't just an emotional hurdle, it fundamentally affects brain development, impacting emotional regulation, memory, and the ability to form healthy relationships with adults. When a student's behavior is challenging, it's often a direct result of these neurological impacts. Um, when I was reading the book, I was really trying to put myself in our students' shoes and thinking about, um, if I had a bad day, or, kind of going back to some of the traumas that I have been through as a child, and then also through my adulthood, how does that impact my school day? How does that impact my work day? And being able to really sit in that and uh, think about really truly how much it does impact these students and their learning. Um, in this slide, you see here that that trauma impacts their behavior. Trauma affects learning and memory. So think about, a trauma that has happened, and now we have children that are trying to sit for tests, trying to do homework, trying to get things to get to their long-term memory. Trauma impacts their relationships with adults, emotional regulation. And then we just have so many students that are impacted by some form of trauma. So, one of the key points that I took from the book is building relationships. Um, for students who have experienced trauma, the world can feel unsafe. Therefore, safety, trust, and connection are not just something that comes easy to them. They are the absolute foundation of learning, though, having relationships. Consistency in our actions and expectations is what helps these students begin to feel secure enough to engage academically. Once again, I think if you just um, stop and break that down in your own personal life, and if you don't have a good relationship with somebody, you know do you really trust that person? So are students being able to trust us as their academic learners, or just their safe place for those hours that they are in our building? We could be that trusted adult for them in building those connections and making them feel safe. So, how do we build this? It starts with small daily actions, greeting every student at the door by name, conducting daily check ins to gauge their emotional state, and taking the time to learn about their lives outside of school. Additionally, creating predictable routines provides the external structure that many of these students lack internally. When I was thinking of this, I was trying to think of, the things that I do in my classrooms. And I mean, I think we all can maybe pick out a student or two that maybe we've noticed. I have the benefits of being in a smaller private school where Um, I also teach third grade PE, so I see them in third grade, and then I get them in fifth grade, and then I will get them in seventh and eighth grade. So I really have a good understanding of their family dynamics for the most part. And then also, what does a really good day look like for them? And what does a not so good day look like for them? Um, but I know that a lot of other buildings aren't in the same situation that I am, with just being very small. But being able to know that when you make those check-ins, um, and greeting them before they, start their class period with you, um, how do they respond? Are they down? Do they look off? Or are they happy and smiling and talking with friends? Those are really things that I hone in on as they are coming into my classroom. So, and I feel that that's really helped me build good relationships with them, and just learning about what are things that they like to do. What do they like to do outside of school besides just being in the building? Another key point was responsibility. Um, Being trauma invested doesn't mean lowering expectations. Absolutely agree with that. Instead, it means teaching students to take responsibility for their choices within a supportive structure. We must provide clear classroom structures and teach expectations explicitly. Our focus should shift from punishment, which often re traumatizes them, to accountability. And I think if you don't necessarily have an understanding of trauma or haven't really had to deal with much trauma, um, you know, embarrassing a student in front of the class, that is trauma, or you're adding to their trauma. So, just being able to figure out the difference between um, classroom expectations and then classroom accountability. Um, Making punishments be something that would be embarrassing or isolating, such as out of school suspension. Though that's traumatizing. We had an incident with our um, youngest son, um, got in trouble at school, and he's in seventh grade, and the school jumped. He's never been in trouble before, and just made a poor choice, and um, they jumped straight to out of school suspension for a handful of boys. And um, it was for recording in the locker room after a football game. Um, and I had gone in to talk to the principal and was not understanding, I get that that's wrong to record in a boys' locker room. There was no one that was changing. It wasn't anything like that. They had just won um, their conference championship. And there just so happened to be a fight that just started to break out. And so and our son was not involved in the fight, but he was recording. And so they jumped straight to the boys, all the boys that were recording. Um, they got the same punishment as the kids that were fighting. And so they jumped straight to an out of school suspension. And I know that this school district is a very large school district where our son goes, and they have really been um, reeling in these out of school suspensions. And I, had just gone and talked to the principal and was like, I'm not understanding this. Why out of school suspension? This is, why are we not teaching the boys? Why are we not recording in locker rooms and cell phone usage and all the things? Like, can you have them have to write or put a skit together, like the football team, have them put a skit together and why this is wrong. Can we do some of this restorative uh, type ways of learning and teaching these middle school brains on making better choices instead of embarrassing them and kicking them out of school? So, needless to say, it did not really go how I had felt it should be dealt with. But I went in as a parent and vocalized my concerns and why this was not appropriate. But once again, everything that I'm learning in these classes, and then also with this book, um, we'll skip to the next slide, but um, in practice, this looks like using the restorative conversations, which is what we've been discussing. And so restorative conversations and student reflection sheets. When harm occurs, we facilitate problem solving discussions that encourage students to repair the harm they've caused. This teaches them that they have the agency to fix mistakes and choose better paths in the future. So restorative conversations, problem solving, student reflection sheets, encouraging students to repair any harm that was done. Um, how do we come around these kids and instead of embarrassing them, how do we turn a mistake into a positive? Um, Fortunately, that is how my brain works. I love children and I love getting to know them and what makes them tick and what makes them work. Um, so then my third uh, idea that I took away from the book was regulation. So the ability to manage emotions and behavior. For students affected by trauma, regulation is incredibly difficult. They may struggle with impulsivity, sudden anger, or deep anxiety. These aren't bad behaviors. They are signs of a nervous system that is struggling to stay focused and calm. So you may be able to pick out a student that really struggles with self-regulation. And I have some skills that may be helpful to you. Um, we can proactively teach these skills to them. This includes providing dedicated calm down spaces in the classroom where students can go before a meltdown occurs. We should also integrate short movement breaks, breathing exercises, and mindfulness activities into our daily schedule to help all students stay regulated and ready to learn. I know in my health class, my classroom door is always open. I'm not always in there, but I've made it just kind of a really calm and peaceful place. And I have fidgets in there, and the kids know that when my door is open, if I'm not in there teaching, they're more than happy to come in and sit on the couch. And if they need a fidget for the day because they've maybe lost theirs or they just need one, they're more than welcome to come in and take one. But during my health class, we also teach mindfulness activities and breathing exercises. In my PE class, we will do, since I have seventh and eighth grade, I have them every day. I will incorporate some of this mindfulness and breathing exercises as well. So just trying to pulling my health class into my PE class. And, I think all students should know how to, or at least have some of these tools in their back pocket for when their body feels out of control. I have some important terms. So we have trauma, refers to overwhelming experiences that affect a person's ability to cope. Our goal is to build resilience, which is the ability to recover from these challenges. We do this by teaching self regulation and using restorative practices to repair harm through dialogue. And then I have some helpful resources for you all. Just trauma-informed teaching training. There's social emotional learning programs, classroom mindfulness tools, and even speaking with your school counselor. Um, getting tips from your counselor can be a great resource as well. But I really think this book does a great job of breaking things down and being a great resource for any teacher, just to learn the signs of trauma and, um, you know, having some um, skills of your own that you can build so that you can pass those down to your students. I know that there are apps that you can get on your phone that can help with breathing. They have apps that can give you um, that can help kind of revert your negative self-talk and give you positive words of affirmation, like on the hour. And then here are some key takeaways. Strong relationships help students feel safe. Responsibility should be taught with support. Regulation skills help students manage emotions. Trauma invested classrooms support resilience. And then here are my discussion questions. One, how could stronger teacher student relationships improve classroom behavior? Question two, what strategies could you use to teach responsibility while supporting traumatized students? And three, how might regulation strategies like mindfulness or calm spaces work in your classroom? Thank you for your time. And if you'd like to dive deeper, there are many resources available regarding trauma informed teaching, social emotional learning tools, and school counselor programs. So let's commit to being the consistent, safe adults our resilient learners need. Thank you for listening.